Thank you. All right, so on the snowy morning, sometimes, the gray sky, it's like a warm blanket. Well, it's a cold blanket, I guess, but a blanket upon us that can help us to drop inward a little bit more. So as you get into a comfortable seat, however that is for you, make sure you feel supported and comfortable. And that could be standing or sitting in a chair or lying down. It doesn't have to be sitting on a block or a cushion. But once you have that sense of support underneath you, let's just take a moment to drop in. Okay, is to feel the ground below us, to feel that support of the earth. And just as all of you, I think everybody said something about the breath in their offerings of a yoga mantra. So let's take a moment to really sit into the breath. And remember to use it as a diagnostic tool as well as a comfort. And you might notice in the beginning of your practice that your breath might be a little bound or a little tight or not as fluid as you would normally feel once we're practicing. So try not to change anything right away. Just observe, what is the state of the breath right now? And if we can notice what our tendencies are in this moment, that gives us some clue to how we are. So if your breath is really high in your body, up in your throat, upper chest, or if it's quick and gulpy, these are things that tell us how we are in the moment. Maybe your breath is really relaxed. And instead of necessarily trying to change the breath, let's try to change um, the offering of our body to receive the breath. So first, rest your eyes, rest your jaw. Feel a sense of surrender through your shoulders, through the base of your skull. Notice your tongue in your mouth and your jaw and relax. And see what you can do to stack yourself well. We don't want to be ramrod straight, but have the sense that there's an efficiency to your alignment, that your head is supported by your spine, that you can maybe draw your head back just a little bit so that the heart can open and the collarbones can broaden and the shoulder blades can be supported. And then begin to feel into the rib cage and notice, where is the breath moving the ribs? How is the movement of your lungs changing the shape of your rib cage? How are the muscles that you're unconsciously and consciously using for breath changing your shape as you inhale and as you exhale? And can you give yourself over to as much spaciousness that comfortably arises? You don't have to push or force. We're not trying to top off the tank and fill ourselves to the brim. We're trying to make room. Notice the back of your body, the sides, under your armpits, the front. And finally, feel the bottom of your breath cylinder, the diaphragm. Let's see if we can allow movement. Which direction do you feel your diaphragm going? Do you feel it dropping down or out to the sides? And when it rebounds, can you feel that dome lifting back up into the rib cage or into the lung space? Just notice if this is difficult for you. A lot of times we have a reverse breathing pattern where we tend to suck the diaphragm up on the inhale and then drop it down on the exhale. So let's see if we can consciously allow the diaphragm to move down and wide on the inhale and recoil back up on the exhale. And again, just like the movement of the ribs, we don't have to force, you don't have to push hard to let your diaphragm move. Just get out of the way. The diaphragm knows exactly what to do if we just get out of our way. Now that you've kind of had a little bit of experience of the physicality of movement of your breathing into the more internal aspects of the breath. Feel the breath move in through your nose. Put a little tracker on that breath and see if you can travel downward into your trachea and bronchi and bronchioles all the way to your alveoli. Now, instead of preparing the outer space to receive, now notice what you're receiving. Notice what you're releasing. Notice what little patterns tend to creep in that are tension or tightness, and see if you can be aware enough to consciously open those gates where you find them. Now that you've had an experience of the breath, the inner breath, let's work just a bit with the pace of your breath. Slow down your inhale to a comfortable pace. And then see if you can make your exhale just a little bit longer. You don't always have to breathe this way, but it's a nice training ground for being able to adapt the nervous system to rest and relax quickly. Maybe on your exhales, imagine that you are in a warm waterfall and the water is just moving down your body out. On your inhale, imagine a moment when you step out of a crowded room outside into fresh, crisp air that smells great, and the desire to breathe that in. Just observe the gift of the giving and the receiving of the breath. And then finally, let's just have some gratitude. Just offer gratitude for the ease of your breath, the gift of what your breath can offer you to help your nervous system, your emotional states, your mental focus. Let's place the palms together at our heart and offer an intention. It could be something we've just heard from each other. It could be something different. So something for your day. All right. And let's relax our hands. So I know a little bit late getting onto our mat, but no time is ever wasted, right? So let's go ahead and find some movement of stretching your limbs out on the ground. So feel into, now that you're getting yourself horizontal on your mat, see if you can feel into what that feels like. The beauty of finding your legs lengthening, your arms lengthening, your side bodies lengthening. Feeling the beauty of being horizontal and letting your spine have some space. Okay, so let's just stretch. Like Deb said, let's just stretch one side and then the other side and just enjoy this, such a simple gift of embodiment as this little posture is. And bring the knees into the chest. And let's rock a little bit, swaying from side to side. All right, and then let's circle the knees, go one direction. Circle the knees, go another direction. And then open the knees for a third direction, so away from the midline and back in. Just notice what your hips are available for today. Right knee into the chest, left leg long on the floor, and roll your ankles around. And change sides. Left knee and right leg long on the ground, and keep feeling that movement of heaviness in your head. Knees back into your chest, pick up your head, give a little snug hug. And then open big and wide to a star. Stretch your limbs out, wiggle your fingers and your toes. And then exhale and draw it back in again. Chin up, knees in. And one more time, open. Feel your breath get large and spacious. Exhale, feel all your breath move out. Put your feet onto the ground. Take your feet as wide as your hips. As wide as your mat. And windshield wiper your knees left and right. So just enjoying gentle, fluid movement. Now, all that breath work we did in the beginning, let's see if we can keep it alive. So a lot of times when we get focused on body movements, we can forget the breath movements. So let's keep it on the burner. When you're ready, roll over onto your side and come up onto your hands and your knees. All right, so let's start moving through some cat-cow. So we're arching and rounding the spine when you get up onto your hands and your knees. Take your time. Allow for that sense of fluidity of your spine and breath to move together as you find that pace of open the front and then opening the back. After a little bit, feel free to move around any way you want to move. You can wag your tail, you can roll around in your spine, breathing deeply. Curl your toes under, and let's just kind of stretch back towards child's pose on your curled under toes and then back up. So we're just kind of reaching into the openness of our feet and then giving it a little bit of a break. Letting your hips come into flexion, knees come into flexion, and then release. All right, now uncurl your toes, lay them flat, and go back to child's pose. Walk the hands forward, stretch through your rib cage, adjust anything that needs adjusting. Find that beautiful breath again. Hands coming over to the left side of your mat so you can open the right rib cage and feel that dropping of your sit bones. Let your head and shoulders be relaxed to open up through the side. Over to the other side. Feel a sense of weight. Relax your skull. Breathing deeply. Come back onto all fours, move your spine about. You can swish and sway, anything that feels good, and then eventually turn your toes under and lift up to dog pose. So
Take your time here, pedal your feet. Feel free to drop one heel, then the other. You can go fast or slow, but then let there be some movement in the breath and some movement in the body. Okay. Give yourself some time and space to open up. And then maybe when you feel like you're ready for a little more stillness, let's rock into the right side of the body and just gently maybe pick up your left foot and then drop it back down and pick up the right foot and drop it back down. Maybe your left hand and drop it down, your right hand and drop it down. Just feel that sense of ground that you are yielding, feet on the ground, but also hands on the ground. Let your head relax. Let your breath move deeply. And then walk your feet forward and come into Uttanasana. Fold from your hip joints. Let your spine be as spacious as you can get. Feel free to wag your tail, shake your shoulders, move your head around. When you're ready, come to a halfway lift. Hands can come on thighs or shins or blocks. Extend and lengthen here. Let's pause here for a moment. We're going to do the same pedaling that we did with our feet in dog pose. Do it here. So I like to have my hands on high blocks to do this, but you could do it with your hands on your legs. Okay, so just lifting one heel and dropping the other deeply. Lifting and dropping deeply. And then bend your knees, go a little deeper in your forward fold, relax your neck, and then drop your seat, lift your chest and rise up. Now, if you get dizzy, you know what to do, squeeze to the midline, reach the arms up to the sky, lean back if it feels nice to do so, and let's cactus open the arms, and just feel the squeeze of the shoulder blades on the back, and let's move your forearms forwards, tuck your chin around your spine a bit. Inhale, arch just a little bit, cactus open, and then exhale and round, coming in. Arms come to the sky, a big breath, lean back if it feels nice, and then a swan dive forward to relax and lengthen your spine again. Inhale for a halfway lift. This body gets open, exhale and melt. Left foot forward, right foot, left foot forward, right foot back. Come into a lunge. Let's drop the back knee onto the ground for a moment. Open the chest, hands on blocks or thigh. Feel the hip flexors open. And we're going to lift that knee up off the ground. Come to your lunge. Let's start to move as you're ready. So you can bend your front knee and then let's straighten your front knee. So we're kind of climbing up the back of the legs. First, we started with just opening our feet and then our Achilles and our calves. And now we're moving a little more deeply into the hamstrings. Breathing well. Where do you want to inhale? Where do you want to exhale? It doesn't really matter. The most important thing you're doing is attending to the breath. All right, find your lunge. Rising on up, reaching the arms to the sky, opening your body, your breath. Feeling the hip flexor of that back leg open, the chest open. Let's cactus the arms here and then bring the hands down. Interlace your hands behind your back if it's comfy and you can support this. And then lift and open your chest. Be mindful to not compress the back body. See, you can always bend the back knee to help support you if need be. All right, and then let's release the hands. Down onto the blocks, walk your back foot forward, fold again, relax your neck. Halfway lift, body gets brighter, more open, exhale and fold. Step your left foot back, right foot is now forward, put your knee down on the ground. All right, open your chest. Find the breath, feel into the beauty of opening those hip flexors on the back leg. And we're going to lift your knee off the ground and start to move with breath. Bending your front knee and then straightening your front knee. And it doesn't have to go all the way straight. We're just moving in that direction. Follow any speed that feels really good to you. Let your breath be a part of your movement. Let it guide your movement. Preparing to welcome the breath. So feel all those places we touched in earlier when we were preparing to open for the breath. And root into your feet. When you feel ready, rise up to crescent lunge. Okay, arms can come up. Put them anywhere you want. Maybe your hands are on your hips. Relax your shoulders. Notice what your low back is doing. If you feel very compressed, try bending the back knee. Try lifting the pubic bone a little bit more. See where your stability comes from. Use your core muscles if you can. Then interlace your fingers the weird way behind your back. Other fingers on top. Open across your chest. Breathing well. If this doesn't feel good, make a different choice. Protect the back knee, protect your low back. And then release and relax. Hands come down, dog pose. Find your hands on the ground and your feet on the ground. Yield, breathe. Come forward into a plank. Integrate. And then put your knees down onto the ground and find the floor. Roll the shoulders a few times. Coming into that awakening of the shoulder blades. And then take a deep breath in. Open up to a cobra pose. Exhale. And melt back down. Again, lifting on up. Exhale. Melting down. Come up onto all fours. Move your spine around, a little swish, a little sway. Inhale, lift your left arm all the way up in the air. Exhale and slide that shoulder down to a twist. Breathe into anywhere you feel right now. So as the soma gives you cues where you have an increased sensation, bring your breath into those sensations. Inhale, lift that arm back up. Hand comes down onto the ground. Second side, arm lifting up. Exhale, slide on through. So let's take each other's advice. Are you going at your own pace? Are you enjoying just whatever moments we have? Doesn't have to be a full hour. It won't be a full hour today because we spent a lot of time talking first. So just see what it feels like to be in this moment, regardless of how long your practice is. You have this breath. Inhale, reach the arm up. Hand comes down onto the ground. Find your way to another dog pose. Notice as you go to dog poses one after the other, do they shift? Do they change? Are you able to melt a little bit more here? Are you more fully in your body? Yield, push and reach. Feel the spaciousness for breath. Melt the brain. Walk your feet forward, come into Uttanasana. Notice how different your body feels than the first time you did this. Drop your seat, rise up, arms coming to the sky. Okay, trace down through the center line of your body. And full breath. So we haven't been practicing that many minutes. I think it's been 15 minutes. And notice what you've accomplished. That's outside of the breath work we did. 15 minutes of movement since we stepped onto our mat. Notice what 15 minutes offers you. So practice doesn't have to be super long to have gifts arise within you. Okay, let's take our feet wide on our mat. Okay, drop your knees, come into a very wide squat. Okay. And start to go back and forth, putting weight into one foot, putting weight into the other foot, and then weight both feet evenly. Drop the four corners of your feet Drop your sit bones down so they're in line with your knees if you can. Take your forearms inside your knees and open things up. And then come all the way up to stand. Okay. Reach the arms up like a standing star. Find, gather, just receive here. It'd be like an antenna for universal energies to just come into you. We're going to bring this energy that we receive and come down toward goddess pose, and we're going to drop this energy and ground down. And then inhale, rise up. Exhale. My breath pace may not match your breath pace. Go at your pace. Twice more. Straighten your legs when you're done. We're going to turn our right foot out so that we can come into some standing poses. Inhale, bring the arms up. Exhale, come into Virabhadrasana. Let's do that once more. Inhale, arms come up, legs straightened. Exhale, Virabhadrasana 2. Okay. And you can choose different pathways if you'd rather have your arms in a different place or down at your sides. All as well. Choose what's working for you. And you can come a little higher in the pose. You can come a little deeper. Round the four corners of your feet. Soften the shoulders. See if you can let any tension across your neck and shoulders go. Finding the breath. Reverse your warrior. When you're ready, reach that extended arm upward. And then find Parsvakonasana. Stretch that left side of your body from your fingertips to your foot. Notice if you come off your line. See if you can prevent the left hip from pushing forward. Draw it back. Again, the neck and shoulders relaxing. Keep the skin at the base of your skull kind of descending down your back. Even weight in the four corners of your feet. And then let's rise on up. Whoa, don't fall. And let's turn our feet the other direction. So now we're going left. Arms coming up. Exhale. Virabhadrasana 2. Inhale, arms up. And then exhale and find your way. Once again, maybe your hands want to be in a different position. You can have your hands on your hips, or prayer at your heart, or some, dropping the elbows and bringing hands out, palms up, whatever works for you. Root your feet. Feel that grounding of both legs. Settle your breath. The big diaphragmatic movement we felt in the beginning of class, see if you can feel it now. When you're ready, reverse your warrior, extend through your side body. And then as you're ready, elbow comes on your knee and stretch your arm open. Feel into the hips, see if you can keep them awake and alive. Drop your feet weight into the ground. That skin, the base of the skull, travels down your back. Open up both side bodies for breath. Let your diaphragm move. And then come back up. Turn your feet to the long edge of your mat and bring your hands down onto the ground. Padrita. You can also put your hands on blocks if you prefer. Breathing deeply. Relax your neck. All right, so walk your feet back, hands back to the front of your mat, and find dog pose. And when you bring your legs closer together, see what release happens in your hips when you bring your legs hip apart. And now let's accentuate that more by taking our feet to the edges of our mat and turning your toes way in. Extending through the spine, feel the inner spiral of your thighs. Come forward into a plank when you feel ready. Integrate, bring your feet back to neutral. Press into the index finger mounds as much as the outer wrists. Hug your hands toward each other to activate a lot of muscles in your rib cage and chest. Okay. Put your knees down first to help you if you need it. Come down to the ground. Inhale, cobra pose. Exhale, and melt. Now choose any of the various back bends that you can do on your belly. You can do locust pose, you can do Superman pose, you can do a wide cobra, you can do up dog. Like, just find one that you love. And then melt and fold. Come up onto all fours. Swish your tail. And then back to child's pose. Feel the compression in your hips, the compression in your knees. Feel the breath travel down your back. Now, hopefully we've warmed up in all directions enough for you to choose your soul pose, a pose that feeds your soul. I think that's what you said, Christine. So it can be any pose at all, as long as you feel like you're prepared for it. It doesn't have to be a pose standing up. It doesn't have to be a pose sitting down. It can be any posture in the huge repertoire of yoga. Okay, so find a soul pose for right now. And if your pose is two-sided, like tree pose or something, then make sure that you take some time to do both sides. So I think different days have different soul poses. You might be in a state of mind or emotions or body where something feeds you better on today than a pose that might have fed you better yesterday. So also remember that even though we do a lot of repetition in our yoga practice, there's so much variety and possibility. So let your practice be soothing for this moment. So what is it? I'm not going to do a pose just so I don't influence anybody. I want you to make your own decision as you find your way into this posture. And remember to take both sides. We'll be here for about a minute. Okay. So whatever you're choosing to do, whatever the one posture or two postures or whatever working you're doing, why did you choose this? What about it feeds your soul today? Whatever you're choosing to do, is there a balance between your effort and surrender? Do you have a sense of yielding and grounding? Are you able to breathe well? Is there somewhere you can relax? And as you find yourself starting to complete whatever you're doing, we're going to transition into pigeon pose or reverse pigeon pose. Maybe that's the pose you just did. So if it is, you can choose a different pose to kind of open up your hips. And depending on whether you choose to go on your back or your front, will determine what kind of props you need. So if you're coming into a pigeon pose, it's, I think, always a good idea to have some props available to support your hip. And then as you find your way into the depth of the posture, support your head. So if you're on your back, let the back of your head rest deeply on the ground. If you're doing pigeon pose, instead of reverse pigeon pose, either make sure that you can put your head on your hands or your head on a block, something for your head to rest on. Melt the shoulders, melt your head, widen your sit bones, and come into your breath. Let this be a posture of ease. So of course there's some effort. But a lot of the time we might notice, if we pay attention to our breath, that there's some restriction around the diaphragm. We can try to pull away from the posture if we're uncomfortable with the edge that we're touching. So without crossing over edges unnecessarily, see what you can do to fully melt within the posture. Let your diaphragm release fully. Let's go ahead and find our way back up. Change sides when you're ready. If you're on your back, just change your legs. If you're on your front, then you might need less propping, more propping, different propping. You might need some more support or less support under your head. So find your pathway to get where you're going. Once you're there, focus on all the subtle little things. Wide sit bones, melting through your diaphragm, your shoulders, the weight of your head. Soften your skin on your face, your jaw, your tongue, your eyes. Have the posture support you so that you're not tweaking knees, ankles, SI joints, hip joints, so you're supported and stable, so that you can surrender into the opening of the pose. You're ready. Come on out of there. If you're using some props, just get them out of the way. We're going to come onto our back. We're going to do this passively with 1 or 2 blocks, a bridge pose, feet down onto the ground. The block can be at the lowest height or the middle height, or you can stack 2 blocks on top of each other across your sacrum for the highest height. So just don't be on one skinny tall block on your sacrum. If you're going high, let the support be of 2 blocks across the width of your sacrum instead of the length. Alright, so shoulders under as much as is comfortable. Fill up your breath. Empty it out. Feel the movements in your diaphragm. Ground your feet. Feel the back of your head melt. Come with your legs straight up in the air now, and you can adjust if you want to be on less or more or slightly different position at the height of the blocks. Alright, so speaking of time, 5 minutes is better than no minutes. So I've been keeping track and we've been on our mat for 31 minutes. Okay, so look at what you've been able to accomplish in the sense of opening your body and presence just in a half hour's time. So, of course, we did a whole bunch of time of breath work before we got onto our mat. And that in and of itself is a practice that can be by itself. Okay, so you can do one pose, you can do 2 hours of posture's length, you can do 5 minutes of breathing, you can do 3 breaths. All of this doesn't matter if it's 30 seconds or 30 minutes or 3 hours. You have the capacity to sink into presence quickly. The more you do yoga, the more you have access to these states quickly. All right, let's come off of your block, come down onto the ground, find your breath, and we're going to do a twist each side. Lift your hips up, scoot them over to the right, knees come up and drop left. Finding the full breath, melts. Come back up, scoot your hips over to the other way, and then knees drop over to the right. And your rib cage, your breath. Come to lie down on your back for Shavasana. Now, before we kind of drift into the deep place of Shavasana, make sure you're comfy, make sure you're warm. And once you establish those things, comfort and warmth, see what it feels like to just focus on your breath. So, of course, breathing when you're sitting has a different quality to it than breathing when you're moving or breathing when you're standing. And now we get to feel into the quality of your breath while you're letting your body relax into Shavasana. So cover yourself with a blanket if you need more warmth. And once you are where you're going to be, melt your body. Start to just be aware of your breath. Notice if it's easier. I mean, it's different because we're lying down, but notice if it's easier to access the mobility of your ribs and diaphragm than when we started. Notice if you have a little more heightened awareness of how the breath feels. If you put a little tracker on it, moving the breath through all of your breathing tubes into your lungs. Notice if it's a little easier to have the breath be in a steady, slow pace. Begin to let your body sink, dropping tension, dropping Stretch your limbs however you desire. Feel free to bring your knees to your chest and rock a bit if it feels good. Eventually coming on to your side, coming up to sit. To offer the gifts of our practice, the gifts of our breath. Send forth your attention to another. Send your prayers, your love, your care. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year.